What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and this is my post-game analysis video for the Jacksonville Jaguars versus Miami Dolphins game yesterday. It was an amazing game. Obviously, the Dolphins won. There's a bit to talk about. Before I do, just want to make one quick formatting note. I try and give you guys very detailed videos, but I am going to scale back my play-by-play portion, and I'm just gonna give you the overview of the drive, what happened on the drive, unless there's something specific to talk about on that drive, and then I'll just talk about that specific play or whatever to help try and shorten it a bit and keep the video size a bit smaller. But anyway, yeah, so look, and real quick too, also, I want to note that I'm pretty much just going to give you all of my commentary right now on the game. And then I'll just breeze through all of the stats and, the quick play-by-play, just so you guys know what happened. But basically, look, I mean, this is how you play football. They went out there and they played a super clean game. I mean, they had a few penalties, but they played really well. They executed well. The Jaguars didn't. There are definitely some things, some other factors that, of course, go into it. And I want to make a note that, it's going to be difficult to evaluate this team, any team really in the NFL, let alone the Dolphins, just because of how crazy this season is, right? With all the opt-outs and the injuries, players getting hurt, right? Like, so, and like last week, against the Bills, right? We might not have done so well offensively if they would have had Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds, right? The Patriots. Does anybody think that, it would have been so close, between us if they had Tom Brady and their entire defense still, right? If they didn't lose Jamie Collins, Landon Roberts, Kyle Van Noy, who came over, to the Dolphins, Dante Hightower, Patrick Chung, all these guys, right? Like so many guys. If they didn't, so, and when we play the 49ers coming up, they're going to be without likely Jimmy Garoppolo, Solomon Thomas for sure, Nick Bosa for sure, possibly Raheem Mostert. Like they are losing tons of guys, and it completely changes their roster, right? So it's going to be difficult to accurately evaluate this roster. So just make sure we keep that in mind, right? I don't want to dampen the win yesterday or anything like that. You guys just know that I like to make sure that things stay in full context, so that way we can evaluate properly, right? But there's definitely 100% things to build on for sure. This offensive line has impressed me through 3 games. Period, right? Like they did everything right yesterday. This game, that's how they got to play football. The defense 100% stepped the fuck up and did a lot better. The offense was just humming all fucking day. It was beautiful. The Jags, obviously, like I said, didn't play all that well. They certainly had the opportunity. They moved the ball, but they just were not really in sync and, just didn't play all that well. So that is also a factor, etc., etc. But anyway, it was amazing. It was amazing. It was amazing. And this is what I want to see more of, right? I hope that this is a glimpse into how they are going to prove me wrong, with this whole philosophy. I still have tons and tons of concerns, right? Like, they have to remain consistent. They have to keep going, right? We have to remain healthy. We got to avoid major injuries. So far, the Dolphins have been lucky in that regard and haven't had too many, but the season is still early. We're only 3 games in. Hopefully we can remain healthy, right? Hopefully, like our wide receiver room, the top 4 guys all have pretty significant injury histories, right? Jakeem Grant, Devontae Parker, right? Isaiah Ford, right? They've all got pretty significant injury histories. So Preston Williams with his ACL. So we need to keep them healthy. But there's a lot to build on. It looks like Myles Gaskin is really coming into his own. At least, over the past 3 games, he seems to be stepping it up in year 2. There's a lot to love about what happened yesterday. I just want to make sure, again, real quick before I get into the stats, because and the stats will even show, right? Like Devontae Parker wasn't as dominant as he needs to be. And overall, like, our stat lines wouldn't blow anybody away, right? It's not like we had 500 yards of total offense and scored 50 something points, right? And if we're going to be able to hold up against like the Ravens and the Chiefs, those kinds of teams, right? We need to be able to get there, right? Et cetera, et cetera. And without question, even if the Dolphins do manage to, win 5, 6, 7, 8 games, which is potentially possible, right? Like, I'm reevaluating because of how, I got to keep it real, mostly because of how injuries are affecting these teams. So, as things develop, we could end up getting more wins than I would have thought, potentially, because of stuff like that. So, but if that happens, we have to understand that we need to get an accurate evaluation, we need to keep everything in context. So we need to think about things like, okay, but if, the 49ers didn't lose like 5 of their top players, would this be different? And the Bills, would it be different if they had those 2 linebackers, et cetera, et cetera? So anyway, you get the point. Let's not fucking sour the win because it was amazing. We are now 1-2. Let's actually start getting into these stats though, and the numbers. Because the Dolphins are now 1-2. We won 31-13. The Jags dropped to 1-2 as well. So both teams are now 1-2. And for the entire game, it was pretty much the Dolphins, right? And so we need to be able to do that against even better teams, right? Like, I think honestly, I think part of this win was the Jags just had a really down day and just didn't play very well, and so they could easily bounce back and still have a really good season. But they certainly have to if they want to have a good season. But the Dolphins unquestionably played a phenomenal game, just up and down, right? So that has a lot to do with it. And that's part of why it is encouraging. And so hopefully they can continue on that track. They can continue to be consistent, and they can continue to raise their level of play across the entire roster, right? So, there are still, several guys across this team that are, have significant injury histories, including, the quarterback of the future, because, Ryan Fitzpatrick is not going to be here forever. So a lot of those things will have to be monitored over the next few years and seasons, so on and so forth. And unquestionably, real quick, before I do get into these numbers, unquestionably, they are still years away from being a consistent contender, because in order to get that label or whatever, that means you have to win consistently. You have to have 9-7 plus records regularly on a regular basis. You need to make it to the playoffs, and you need to challenge for the division and for titles, etc., etc. Once you do that on a regular basis, then you can say you've done it, right? Then you can say you consistently are blah blah blah. But the Dolphins still are at least a few years away from doing that. Hopefully they continue on the track that we've seen them in this very, very short time span. And it's more a testament to the progress that they're making, as opposed to, just a fucked up offseason, or a fucked up season, excuse me, right? Hopefully it's not just because the season's terrible for everybody and the injuries are destroying other teams and so on and so forth, that the Dolphins are doing as well as they appear to be doing. Anyway, so let's get into this. The Dolphins had 294 total yards. So again, hope you would want to see that higher. The Jags had 318, so they still actually did best us there. We had 156 passing yards to their 246. Again, the threshold you want to see there ideally is 200. So, if we're gonna wanna be able to play against teams like the Chiefs and the Steelers and the Ravens, we're gonna need to be 300 passing yards and 150 rushing yards per game, right? Starting to get to that level, right? And then scoring 35, 40 points, on a regular basis, not necessarily per game. Your per game, you would want to have it at least like 30 points per game, but be able to score upwards of that, right? To be able to contend with those kinds of guys. So it appears that we're moving in that direction. Hopefully that continues. Because rushing, we had 138 rush yards, and to their 72. So again, the defense stepped up way more in this game. And that was wonderful to see. We were 5.2 yards per play. Still want to try and get that up a little more, but 5 is absolutely a wonderful place to be if you can maintain that. They had 5 yards per play. We didn't have any turnovers. They had 1 fumble, 1 interception, but they also did turn it over on downs 3 times. So we won the turnover battle absolutely. So that plays a lot into it as well, right? But it wasn't, well, I mean, I guess I was going to say it wasn't all necessarily on our defense, right? Those turnover on downs weren't necessarily us, right? Because there were penalties involved, some mistakes on them. So it wasn't all our defense. They had some of the responsibility in how that turned out. But again, the defense played phenomenally better than they did the previous 2 weeks. And the offense was fucking humming. And special teams was holding it down too. We were 53% on third downs to their 30. We had the ball for 34 minutes and 22 seconds. We're to their 25-38. So we had the time of possession battle won as well. We had 6 penalties. They had 8. So we won in that regard as well. And so all of these different factors are important, right, as to the outcome. It's not just these raw stats. It's not just that, you know, the Jags played poorly. It's not just that the Dolphins played well, right? You have to combine everything. It's not just the injuries. You have to make sure you take all of it into account. In the passing game, Ryan Fitzpatrick was 18 for 22, 90% completion percentage. So, but he only had 160 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, but he did have a 133.3 passer rating. The reason why I say like only 160 yards is because, so again, if we're going to hold our own against, like, you know, the Ravens and the Chiefs particularly, the passer rating is great, the completion percentage is great, but you're going to want to be able to maintain, you know, a run game like we did, maybe even push it up to more like 150 yards instead of the 138. 100 plus is phenomenal, but you want to get it up to maybe about 150, right? And then 300 passing yards. So he's going to need more than 160, and you need to throw more touchdowns than just 2. Or at least, you know, I mean, unless you have like 6 rushing touchdowns, but that's probably unlikely. Although Jordan Howard seems like he's going to be getting, hopefully, a lot of goal line touchdowns this year. So maybe. But my point is you definitely want to be able to score more touchdowns than 4. But 4 is a tremendous step forward for where we've been. So that is progress, and hopefully that continues. My point is again, one more time, if we're going to compete with those quality teams, the level of team that they are, then we're going to need to fucking, you know, his stat line's going to need to be more like, you know, I don't know, 25 for 32, at least like 70% completion percentage for 300 yards, 3 or 4 touchdowns, you know, maybe 1 or no interceptions and a high passer rating, and then you have 100 to 150 yards on the rush yards on the ground, and then add in another 1 or 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns there, whatever, depending how badass you are, etc. Right? So I think you guys get it. Gardner Minshew was 30 for 42, 71.4%, 275 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception, and a 79% or 79 passer rating. Right? So if you took his attempts and his completions with his yards, but you know, the touchdowns and interceptions of Ryan Fitzpatrick and the passer rating of Ryan Fitzpatrick, then you're a lot closer. Anyway, you guys get it. I'm not going to belabor it. In the rushing game, Myles Gaskin, like I said, appears to be, you know, really carving out a spot for himself. He has been the leading rusher in all 3 games. He had 22 rushes for 66 yards and a 3 average. Fitzpatrick threw in 7 rushes, 38 yards, a touchdown, and a 5.4 average. Jakeem Grant, 1 rush for 29 yards. Jordan Howard, 3 rushes, 1 yard, 1 touchdown, and a 0.3 average. James Robinson had 11 rushes for 46 yards for them and a 4.2 average. Gardner Minshew had 3 rushes for 22 yards and a 7.3 average. And I think I'm messed up on my stats here, but I think James Robinson also had a rushing touchdown. They did, or no, he did have 2 touchdowns. He had 2 touchdowns because they missed the extra point on one of them. Anyway, so he had their 2 touchdowns. Receiving, Devontae Parker led the way for us, 5 of 5 for 69 yards. Again, he needs to be more dominant. So he needs to be getting 100-yard games more consistently, and he needs to be scoring more touchdowns as well. Myles Gaskin was 5 of 5 for 29 yards. Jakeem Grant, 1 of 1 for 19. Mike Gesicki, 1 of 3 for 15 yards and a score. And again, he also needs to be more consistently dominant, right? Like, he had a dominant game last game, but obviously kind of fell off in this one production-wise. But he did still get a touchdown, so that was great. Isaiah Ford, 2 of 2 for 14 yards. James Robinson led the way for them, 6 of 6 for 83 yards. Keelan Cole, 4 of 5, 43. Chris Thompson, 5 of 6 for 35 yards. Chris Conley, 3 of 8 for 34. Laviska Shenault, 5 of 6 for 33. James O'Shaughnessy, 3 of 4 for 29. And Tyler Eifert, 2 of 3 for 11. Let's also note they did have DJ Chark and their starting center, Chris Linder, I believe his name is, out for this game. So that also played a pretty big factor. We were missing Byron Jones, to throw that out there as well, just to, for full context. Gardner, the only fumbles in the game, Gardner Minshew had one and lost it. Defensively, Kamru Grugier-Hill led the way for us, 5 solo and 2 assisted tackles with a sack and a tackle for loss. Jerome Baker, 3 solo, 5 assisted, a tackle for loss and a pass defense. Landon Roberts, who was back from concussion, had 3 solo, 4 assisted. Jamal Perry, 3 solo, 3 assisted. Brandon Jones, 3 solo, 2 assisted. Noah Igbenogany had 2 solo, 1 assisted, and a pass defense. Kyle Van Noy, 1 solo, 2 assisted, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery. Zach Seiler, 1 solo, 2 assisted, and a half sack. Andrew Van Ginkel, 1 solo tackle, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. Xavier Howard, 1 solo tackle, 1 interception for 1 yard and a pass defense. And Emmanuel Ogbah, 2 assisted tackles and a half sack. Josh Jones led the way for them. 7 solo tackles, 1 assisted. Miles Jack, 7 solo, 4 assisted. Joe Schobert, 6 solo, 2 assisted, 1 tackle for loss. Trey Herndon, 5 solo tackles. Cassius Marsh, 3 solo tackles. Andrew Wingard, 3 solo tackles. And Josh Allen, 2 solo with a sack and 2 tackles for loss. He's a linebacker, I believe. Obviously not the Bills quarterback. And Adam Gotsis had 1 solo, 1 assisted tackle, and a tackle for loss. And the kicking game, Jason Sanders was 1 for 1, a long of 30 with, 1 for 1 from 30 yards. For field goals, and 4 of 4 on his extra points, which is obviously the more important part because that means we scored 4 touchdowns. Brandon Wright didn't have any field goals, but it was 1 of 2 on his extra points, and kind of underscores really their entire night. Again, they just didn't play all that well yesterday, and even their kicker missed 1 of their extra points, right? So kind of underscores the night that they had. It wasn't just that the Dolphins played well, as great as they did play. So we need to see them keep that. I mean, we got the Seahawks and the 49ers coming up. So those are going to be 2 really tough games. In the punt game, Matt Hawk had 4 punts of 41 average, 2 inside the 20 with a long of 47. Logan Cook, 3 punts, 52.3 average with a long of 63. In the kickoff return game, Jakeem Grant had 2 for a 15.5 average with a long of 19. Holding it down there, Keelan Cole had 1 for 24 yards. Jakeem Grant had 2 punts for 14 average along a 15. And D.D. Westbrook had 1 for 8 yards. Did we win? Yes, we won the game. So that's awesome, awesome, awesome. And just a real quick breakdown. In the first quarter, the Dolphins received the ball. They scored a touchdown after 12 plays. Then the Jags punted after 4. Dolphins then scored again after 7. The Jags ended the first quarter after 5 plays. In the second quarter, the Jags did score a touchdown after another 4 plays. Dolphins scored a touchdown on their following drive after 13. Jags then had their first turnover of downs after 10 plays. Dolphins then go 3 and out. Jags then punt and end the half after 6 plays. The third quarter kicked off with the Jaguars receiving the ball and punting after 5 plays. Then the Dolphins punted after 8. Jags fumbled after 6 plays. Dolphins then score a touchdown after 5. Jags end the quarter after 5 plays. and then turnover on downs after 3 plays into the fourth quarter. Dolphins then go 3 and out. Jags score a touchdown after 11 plays. Dolphins punt after 5. Jags turnover on downs for their last time after 4. Dolphins kick field goal after 4 plays. Jags intercepted after 5. And then Dolphins kneel to end the game after 3 plays. So, you know, obviously, again, wonderful game. The Dolphins fucking kicked ass. It was amazing. Again, it was pretty much Dolphins the entire game. And it was beautiful to see. And again, hopefully we can see that remain consistent and then continue to improve and build off of what they have done in the first 3 games. The first 2 games obviously were losses, but the offense showed some really good things and showed some impressive things and things that I wouldn't have necessarily expected. So they need to continue that. And the defense struggled in the first 2 games, played a lot better this past game, and they need to continue in that direction. If they do, maybe we can, you know, break past that 5 or 6 game ceiling that I had them at. I'm still not totally sure on that, to be honest, because we still do have a ton of really difficult games on the schedule. But it will depend, right? And a lot of things, it's going to be impossible really to, you know, predict because of things like injuries. So we're just going to have to monitor it week to week and just see how the dice, you know, rolls, how the cards come out, and we'll see where we are. But there's definitely some things to be excited about. And this is one of those games that, man, you can just watch it over and over again because it was beautiful. And again, my final note will be simply, hopefully this is, you know, not just a temporary thing. Hopefully it's not just simply because of the injuries and because of how, you know, fucked up this entire season is, etc., etc. And hopefully they are on the path to getting things fixed and taking this franchise back to prominence and back to consistently winning, getting to the playoffs, etc. Hopefully, but we will have to see. Again, I mean, it's going to take the rest of this season, next season, and the season after that before we're going to really have an idea. So let's buckle up and let's hope for the best, and let's keep it going next week. Obviously, we don't have a game on Sunday because we just played on Thursday. Our next game is against the Seahawks. It is in Seattle, I believe. Let me just double check that to make sure. Obviously, I will be doing a live stream for that game. It's in Miami, but it is against the Seahawks. It'll be 10 o'clock a.m. my time, 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern. I will be doing a live stream for that game, of course, so make sure you join me for that. And hopefully, you know, it'll be good. And let's get another W, man. Let's make it 2-2 on the season. And if we can beat the Seahawks, then we're really fucking talking. So let's go out and do it, man. It's gonna be fun, and join me for that. All right, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. I hope you guys enjoyed, appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And of course, as always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.